Today, I'm going to show you how to get perfect miters on your trim every time. Let's go. If you've ever taken the time to install a square in a corner wall of your home, you probably realize pretty quick that your walls are not even close to square. Unfortunately, framing carpenters and trim carpenters, they're not exactly the same. And so, it's not that obvious to the naked eye most of the time, but where it becomes blatantly obvious is when you start installing trim. So the natural inclination is to assume that your walls are square and then cut everything at 45. And while that will work some, you're gonna find that you've also got some corners that you're gonna have some pretty unsightly gaps when you do that, which then you end up, we've all seen it. You've got to squirt a bunch of caulking and stuff in there, and it will get you by, but honestly, we can do better. And luckily, there's a fairly inexpensive tool that is going to help us to get those miters perfect every single time. This is the Starrett Miter Protractor. Now, this is a fairly simple tool that honestly is kind of ingenious. It has two scales. So it has a scale on the outside, and it has a scale on the inside. The scale on the outside is for single cuts, and the scale on the inside is for miter cuts. Now, I tend to use the miter cut scale a lot more than the other, but we're gonna cover really quickly what both of these scales do. For inside miters, you're simply gonna slide this thing into a corner until both edges touch the wall, and then you're gonna bring it back out, you're gonna hold it in place, and you're gonna look at the inside scale. You're gonna look at that scale, you're gonna see where that little arrow points to, and it's gonna give you a reading. Most likely it's gonna be between 43 and 47 degrees, depending upon the accuracy of your wall. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna go out, you're gonna cut this on your miter saw, and you're gonna come in and you're gonna see that you got a perfect miter. Now remember something, even if you look at it and it's 44 and you're like, oh man, I would have just cut this 45, that's not a big deal. It is a big deal because even though it's just 1 degree, we're bringing 2 pieces in, so we're compounding that error. Now for outside miters, this thing is gonna work about the same way. The only difference is that we're gonna put this around the outside of the corner. And the way that that works is this thing kind of flips around inside out. And that's how we're gonna put that around that corner. And it's gonna give us the same reading. We're gonna look at the same scale, and then all we're gonna do is do the same thing. Take it back to the miter saw, put it on, cut it, bring it in, and be absolutely amazed at how perfect your miters are. In my opinion, this is one of the easiest way to get the most accurate miters that you can possibly get. And I wanna show you real quick, here's the difference between just taking and just assuming that something is a 45 and putting that in there and look at the gap that we've got. Now, using the Miter Protractor, we actually found out this was about a 46.5. And now look at the difference when we bring that in there. That 46.5, man, there is very little gap in there. It is almost dead perfect. Makes a big difference on your finished work. The single cut scale also works essentially like an angle finder. So if you got an oddball wall or something like that, you can just slap this up there. Then you're gonna look at the outer scale for that single cut. That's gonna tell you what that angle is. This works great for any time that you're needing to butt up against something that's not going to be a miter. Also, it works good. Let's say you were gonna put a shelf on a wall. Here's an example. Let's pretend we were gonna put a shelf on a wall on an angle that was, you know, kind of an oddball angle. All we're gonna do, we'll put this in the corner, we're gonna get our angle, then we're just gonna run it out to the miter saw, we're gonna cut it on that angle, and we'll slide it in there, and you're gonna see that you got this perfect, accurate cut, and it looks great. Now, if I had one nitpick, I think that the arms sometimes can get in the way. They're a little bit long sometimes. There are kind of weird corners and little bitty angles, short walls, things like that, sometimes that you can't quite get in there very well. I've seen people that have taken and cut off like one of the arms a little bit shorter than the other to kind of help mitigate this. So that might be something you consider, but that's my only nitpick because other than that, it just flat works. For about 20 or 25 bucks, you no longer have to wing it on your mitered corners. You can get great results every time. And if saving yourself the headache is not enough, trust me, the money that you're gonna save in caulking surely will be.